Thank you so much once again. My favorite finance commission is always 14th Finance Commission. In the cooperative federalism, we can think about 14th Finance Commission prior and after. Why I'm saying this? Because of the radical decision they have taken related to the quantum of devolution. And of course, we know that after that, many things happened. The restructuring of grants and conditional grants have happened. But that priority the commission has given to work with the quantum of devolution or the magnitude of devolution is what I adore. And I think in the 16th Finance Commission, this approach of focusing on the magnitude of the devolution is what we must be focusing on. And in the memorandum which we put forward to the 16th Finance Commission, I think the focus has to be once again on the magnitude of devolution, because the professors have spoken before me the kind of the shrinking of the pool that is happening, and this size of or the magnitude of the devolution and the shrinking that's happening outside the divisible pool, there should be a linkage between this, and center government or the finance commission is answerable for that. And they can't do a disproportionate increase in the cess and surcharges the way it is happening. That's leading to the shrinkage of the funds. So ask for 60, we may get at least 55. So that's the first point I would like to put forward, that we should be speaking about the magnitude of devolution. Now, two major decisions that has happened in Finance Commission, the 14th Finance Commission. One is, of course, as I mentioned, the magnitude of devolution. The second is the focus they have given on ecological fiscal transfers, the climate change commitments. So that, in the present devolution formula, the ecology and the forest is given 10% weightage. I think we need to focus on the climate change commitments because this is a broader question. It's an international public good. That's the way India is putting forward this concern. So we must be focusing on ecological fiscal transfers, just like the way the 14th Finance Commission has put forward that. And of course, the 15th Finance Commission retained the criteria with some minor corrections. So that's my point about the quantum of devolution. Now, what could be the plausible arguments? Take a moment and take your seat as a chairman of 16th Finance Commission. So what could be that plausible argument he's going to put forward to you when he's on board for the bargaining? First, he will be talking about the poly crisis, or he will be talking about the geopolitical uncertainties, the exogenous factors that's affecting his size of government. And Professor Harilal has pointed out this beautifully, that what's happening in the center government, the size of government is shrinking. So if the size of government is shrinking, of course, that is closely correlated to the revenue stability. So the revenue stability, what's happening, we have talked about the pillar 2, the global, the minimum tax for the corporation tax, it is coming down to 15%. All those, the details of the shrinkage of the tax pool we are talking about, and it is closely linked, the size of the government, the poly crisis, and the revenue stability. So if that is the case, they will argue before us that macroeconomic stabilization function, we can better perform. So that's the way they are going to put forward the argument. And that's what is exactly happening in the Lutyens' Delhi. So how we counter-argue this statement? Over the years, after the 14th Finance Commission, something very strange that happened, a development is, in the cooperative federalism, there is a kind of nudging that's happening now. The center government is nudging the state governments to go to the market to find the extra borrowing space. And they articulated that you can go beyond 3% of the deficit, but that 0.5 will be tied to the structural reforms. It will be tied to the power sector reforms. And these kind of macroeconomic uncertainties due to the poly crisis, due to these kind of debt deficit dynamics, now the states are equally exposed to these macroeconomic uncertainties. So even though the macroeconomic stabilization function is a function of the top government, when the states are equally exposed to the macroeconomic uncertainties, and there is a process of nudging that is happening in the cooperative federalism, we have every right to argue that this is not on. This is just not on, especially when the expenditure, transfers or the expenditure assignment is mostly at the subnational levels of government, and the dynamic taxes are at the top level of government. So one thing we should not be arguing is the tax specific or the tax specific buoyancy and the kind of transfers. We have done away with that by the 10th Finance Commission. We don't want to look into the tax specific buoyancy or the tax specific shares once again. The divisible pool, combining the pool is fine, but the shrinkage needs to be addressed, and that has to be closely tied to the way the cesses and surcharges is getting designed in the economy, and it has to be closely tied to that. And we have to ask for more devolution if that kind of, increasing disproportionately increase in the kind of shrinkage of the divisible pool. So we don't want a tax specific model. Once again, it has to be divisible pool, and it has to be closely tied to what's happening related to the shrinkage. Now, from the magnitude, let's get into the criteria of devolution. The present formula, as distinguished panelists spoke before me, 45% of the entire, the scientific formula is given to the per capita income distance. That's affecting the states which have robust growth path. So what should be done that? And Professor KJ Joseph has rightly pointed out that this is not the exact reflection of the fiscal capacity. If the prime duty of the Finance Commission is to offset fiscal disabilities, getting into the per capita income distance, that's not exactly the criteria which we need to look into. Now, they will counter-argue that, look, we need to hold our country together. We have economic convergence in our mind. So the rich states and the poor states need to catch up with the rich states. And Professor Pinaki Chakraborty and I have a paper on this economic convergence. We looked into the overall convergence and the club convergence, incorporating the fiscal federal variables. And of course, this equity concern is real. And we have an issue related to the economic convergence. But then the counter question is, of course, we can understand that the equality in processes, it's a scientific formula, but it's not leading to equality in outcome. We are getting penalized for being efficient. Now, what is your solution for us when we are having a robust growth path and when we have controlled the population? And there should be a counter mechanism to support us, because we are reaching a tipping point and it is affecting the fiscal space. Now, getting into the other variables, population is given 15% weightage. Area, again, how to deal with that? The criteria of area, that will be a big question in the 16th Finance Commission, whether getting into terrain or whether getting into density of population, it's going to be a big discussion. Area is given 15%. Ecology and forest is given 10%. Demographic performance, to counter that the negative effect on population, is given by the TFR, which is given 12.5%, and the tax effort, because they thought that we will be lazy if there is more transfers, intergovernmental transfers from top, the states will go lazy. So we need to have a tax effort with 2.5% weightage. So this is the existing devolution formula. So where we can articulate this, that 45% income distance, is there any different methodology in which we can calculate that income distance? Number one, can we talk about a kind of compensation, because we are losing out because of 45% is given to the income criteria. Is there any compensation you can do by incorporating the human development indicators? Is that possible? And the demographic performance is proxied by the TFR and transition. The states like Kerala, we have it's affecting our labor market dynamics. We have quite a bit of huge elderly population. So when you talk about the demographic performance variable, should we be taking into consideration of this demographic transition that's affecting our labor market dynamics? So these are the questions we can ask. But when we talk about the human development, the practitioners or the bureaucrats or the Finance Commission members, they will be very comfortable with simple indicators than putting a composite indicator like human development index. Because the bureaucrats, we have to calculate on the basis of, they will keep the formula very simple. not complicated. And of course, the HDI, that will be a favorable criteria for us. But taking this intergovernmental fiscal transfers beyond the income criteria to, human development perspective, should we be speaking that put a variable related to infant mortality rate? Or should we be talking about an indicator which can be incorporated within the Finance Commission formula? But again, as Professor Harilal mentioned, the taste of the pudding is in eating. But we cannot open the box first. We have to fix the formula or fix the principles, balancing the equity and efficiency criteria initially with proper weightages and proper determinants. And once you open the box and how the states got the funds there, again, the corrective mechanism is possible or not, then we are going political over there. Prima facie, it looks like very scientific. There is no discretion of the Finance Commission chairperson or members on that. But when we open the box and when we see the interstate shares, if you're doing a corrective mechanism, that's where the discretion operates. So should we be getting into articulating about the indicators? So this is next question. Or should we be focusing about a macro concern about the magnitude of the devolution? That's what, Professor Vinod Vyasulu also put forward, because we should be doing a lot of Excel exercises in which an alternative formula will be, tried out and, work out what are the ways in which the interstate, formula or the interstate share will differ. So that's a question. Now, with the nudging, if they are getting into the deficit dynamics, then the Section 4 of the legislation needs a relook. The Section 4 of the legislation needs a relook because Finance Commission is not confined to designing the intergovernmental fiscal transfers alone. They are getting into the subnational debt dynamics now and articulated the indicators related to the fiscal risk. If that is the case, we have a clear case for articulating to them, just like the way Professor Harilal also mentioned, that if the revenue stability is the concern, then allow us to do a little bit of extra, borrowing. And when we look into this, ethno-fragmentation literature and the center-state fiscal transfers, the political economy, when I read the Harvard papers by Alberto Alison at that time, it was of an academic interest. Like if the center's party and the state's parties, they are different when in power, it is affecting the center state relations or intergovernmental fiscal transfers. When I was a student, I read those papers by Alberto Alicina as an academic interest, but now it's hitting us. It's hitting us. It is coming as a reality that it is not only the case in India, but it's the case of other federation as well. When the party in power is different, it is affecting, and also the ethno-fragmentation. So that literature is real right now, and the students at Gulati Institute may relook into this aspect so that we have an evidence-based research to support the research. And I also know that Ashkar of Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation is already looking into the progressivity of transfers once we incorporate the demographic transition variables. So such kind of researches from the GIFT is valuable to, back up our memorandum of understanding to be put forward to the 16th Finance Commission. Thank you.
Lekha, can you hear me? Can you, Professor Lekha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. In fact, your video was switched off and people were complaining about it. Can you switch on? Can you switch it on and greet all of us?
So kindly excuse me, I'm very unwell. I'm very unwell. So I am speaking to you from my bed. Yeah. Sorry about it.
Okay. But your presentation was very clear.
Thank you, sir.
You had gone through all the nitty-gritties in such a short period. And then I particularly, one particular point I thought was very relevant from my experience. In fact, when in the early stages of Kerala's Janakiya Sutranam, People's Campaign, when we decided to distribute plan money to the local governments, a committee was appointed, and I was a member of that committee for evolving the devolution formula. And we were thinking about various variables which can